Welcome to Inner Racing by Motorsport Mind. This is the audio version of my popular monthly free video series on mental skills in motorsport. I'm your host Greg, and I'm here to share with you practical insights and strategies to help you enhance your mental racing performance both on and off the track. So get ready as we dive deep and explore the mindset behind successful racing, and as we look at practical ways that you can sharpen your racing mental skills performance and gain a competitive edge when you go racing. Let's get started. Hi everybody, Greg here, and in this week's video I want to do a short video on being smart. So working smarter, not harder. So many of you know I'm also a nutritional coach, but I was talking to a driver recently and we were talking about one of our favorite things, and this is intermittent fasting and keto and benefits and downsides and stuff like this. And the topic of Dave Asprey came up. Now, Dave Asprey was kind of like the modern father of, if you want to call it biohacking. I think he even calls it biohacking now. And probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago, he started developing what's now known as Bulletproof Coffee. He sold the company Bulletproof, which now does supplements and all this kind of thing, and he's moved on. But he continues to write books, and he's got a new book, it's a newish book called Smarter, Not Harder. And I ended up talking to the driver, and we were talking about the contents of this book. But I thought Smarter, Not Harder is a really good way to think about your preparation for your racing. So let's have a look what I mean by smarter, not harder. So smarter, not harder, what do I mean? It's about the fact, and it really comes back to the fact that your performance starts up here. You can go out and you can continue to improve your technique. You can go testing. You can be on the sim. But what's the one thing that will affect how well you can reproduce that skill that you've developed? So you can go to the track and you can test for days. You can be spending hours on the sim every day. But what's the one thing that will impact that skill that you've developed? And that is this, your mental skills. Also in the book Mindset, which is a great book, gets a little bit odd in places, but it's a great book. There's loads of metaphors in it, which are very confusing. However, it really does talk about the fact that you can spend hours perfecting your technique, but when it comes into that moment where you have to deliver that skill in the real world, in competition, in a race, on a race weekend, doesn't matter how hard you've worked on the skill, doesn't matter how well you've perfected the skill sitting in a sim. It's how good this is that allows you to put that skill into practice. So instead of just drilling the skills all the time. So I spoke about it recently in a video about crabbing. When we see performance not really improving across a season, and a lot of the time it's because we're not focusing enough on our recovery. So you see it particularly when there's lots of back-to-back race weekends, or drivers got a really busy race calendar. And so we've got a race weekend and a race weekend. Well, why would I expect a different outcome, different performance, different result at the next race weekend from myself, from my performance, than the previous weekend? Surely I'm just going to turn up and do pretty much the same thing as I did the previous weekend. It's not like I've trained in between to improve or focused on anything to improve. And this is like, if you think about an athlete is training, competition. Then training, competition. There's big gaps in between where they are working on those skills so that in the moment of competition, they perform better. And when we think about it mentally, we can easily get attracted by the bright lights of sims and the excitement of testing because it's racing and that's what we do. It's exciting. That's the whole point of it. But smarter, not harder would say, well, hang on a minute. How about dedicating a little bit of focus, a little bit of time, a little bit of attention to the smarter part of it so that when it comes to delivering the skill, I can actually deliver it consistently and in the way that I've perfected it. And this also applies to your race weekend too. When you're thinking about your race weekend, when you're out there, thinking about being smart out on track, planning in the paddock. So smarter, not harder can then extend to being calm, because if I'm calm, I'm smart. Remember, when we get overwhelmed, when we get stressed, this prefrontal cortex, this neocortex at the front of our brain gets less blood supply. We become dumber when we are stressed. So if I'm dumber, I'm not going to be that smart. So I need to be calm to be smart. So working on your calm, really maximizing your calm, not your relaxation, but your calmness is key. Thinking about being smart again, smarter, not harder. Planning, looking at who else am I racing against? Who's the fast guys out there? If I'm going out, who do I want to hook up behind? Who do I want to avoid? Who's the guy that's just always involved in incidents? Who's the guy that's the rolling chicane that, is just a problem out on track? Being smart about it, having some goals across your weekend. Okay, so if I've got a secondary goal and somebody gets in my way during qualifying, I don't throw the lap away. I switch to my secondary goal and I work on my late braking, I work on my apexes, I work on my exits, I work on something else because I've got a plan. I'm being smarter. I'm not just trying harder. I had a great conversation with somebody this week who they just said, the harder I try, the worse my performance gets. Yes, because the harder we try, we're starting to try to bring in an element of sort of conscious application. And this unconscious competence is what we were talking about recently when we were talking about flow. When we're in flow, we're just doing what we're doing unconsciously. We're not getting in our own way by thinking about what we're doing. It's just happening because I am unconsciously competent. So I can just do what I do, but without the noise, without the trying too hard because I'm having conversations or getting emotional about it. I get the best out of myself. So when I was talking to this driver, we're talking about emotions and keeping the emotions in a narrow band, like I've spoken to a lot of you about. And one of the things about keeping the emotions in a narrow band is it stops the peaks and the troughs. It stops me from getting angry or stops me getting down if things haven't gone my way, because those emotions prevent me from being calm. And if I'm not calm, I'm not smart. So smarter, not harder, really focusing on that element of your racing. Yeah, okay, I've got the skills, but how do I actually deliver those skills when I need to deliver those skills if I'm not being smart? So think about how you can be smarter when you go racing. It's not all just about going out there and going at it as hard as you can. No, because that doesn't work all the time. Got to be smart about it as well. How can you be more efficient? How can you learn more? How can you guarantee that in any session you'll be able to deliver your technical skills and your physical skills the absolute best that you can? So think about how you can race smarter, not harder. Any thoughts, any comments, any questions about that, just let me know. I'll speak to you next week. Have a great week. Take care. Bye. And that wraps up another episode of Inner Racing by Motorsport Mind. I hope you found this month's topic valuable in your journey towards peak performance in your racing. To stay updated with the latest content, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter, download the app, and subscribe to the blog. Just visit motorsportmind.com or follow the links.